So we'll start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our today's webinar. It's a joint webinar of Bioneex and GATC Health. The webinar is about Derisking Biotech Investment with Predictive AI Analysis. I want to welcome everyone here today and introduce our moderator, Dr. Rahul Gupta, President of GATC Health and former Director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. Dr. Gupta, please.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sambad, and good morning to everyone, and good afternoon to some as well. We welcome you to our webinar, De-Risking Biotech Investments with Predictive AI Analysis. Thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the hottest topics impacting every facet of our lives, artificial intelligence. In the biotech sector, AI is being leveraged today from all angles, from regulatory decision-making to investment evaluations to capital allocation and drug discovery. Today, we're taking a closer look at how predictive AI tools are revolutionizing due diligence and helping investors make more informed, data-driven decisions. Now, our goal is to shine the light on how AI can reduce risks and surface hidden opportunities in this fast-moving industry. We've curated an amazing panel of industry leaders who will each share their qualified perspectives on how AI is impacting both the regulatory processes as well as the biotech investments. So get ready. We look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and ask each of our esteemed panelists to provide a short self-introduction. So let me start with Dr. Gurpreet Gill-Sangha. Dr. Gill-Sangha, over to you.
I realized I was on mute. Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Glad to be here and be part of this discussion. I have been with HHS, the Health and Human Services, for the past 25 plus years. I have recently left FDA, CEDA primarily, and have worked with, collaborated with CBER as well as CDRH. I have exposure to a large number of applications for both drug development and approval for NDAs and BLAs, which is the new drug applications and the biologic licensure applications. I have worked across many clinical divisions and therefore many clinical indications, as well as a wide variety of dosage forms. I also have worked at NIH, primarily NCI, National Cancer Institute, for development of oncology products. Glad to be here, and I'm happy to share some of the regulatory perspectives from my experiences.
Wonderful. Let me move over to Greg.
Good day, Dr. Gupta, and hello, everybody in the audience. I am Greg Sarafin, recently retired from EY's global leadership team. I'm responsible for our technology partnerships and businesses. Recently have become the chief investment officer of an AI company based in Europe. And I'm also a senior advisor advising companies on matters of capital allocation and capital efficiency.
Wonderful. With that, let me turn it over to Dr. Sambad.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. My name is Sambad Rafalian. I'm the founder and CEO of Bioneex. I come from the big pharma side. I worked in Sanofi in oncology, in Pfizer in regulatory affairs space. I work in IQVIA and work in private equity merger and acquisitions focus on pharma space. And I'm glad today to be in this wonderful discussion with all other experts and leaders in the industry. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. And with that, our last participant, but not the least, let me turn it over to Ty.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy days. I'm the Chief Business Officer of GATC Health, and been with the company for about 4 years. Happy to tell you more about that in a few minutes. My background is mostly around technology, the last 15 years in healthcare technology, including using machine learning and AI and optimizing Medicare plans. So happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. I think we've got a great panel. Welcome to everyone, and welcome those online listening to us today. Let me start right away. So let's set the stage to look at some of the industry challenges. So let me turn over to you first, Dr. Gill-Sangha. Can you paint a picture, a much clearer picture for us as to what is happening at the intersection of AI and the current regulatory environment?
Sure, Dr. Gupta. I mean, these days, nowadays, AI is everywhere, right? And FDA is no exception to that. As much as industry has been working on innovating different AI platforms for drug development, FDA regulators, the AI systems have been front and center for FDA as well. So many of you may be aware that FDA recently in June 2025 launched their AI platform ELSA, which is housed within the GovCloud. And ELSA at this point has been capable of assisting in reviews, in identification of high priority inspection targets, as well as determination of filing categories for application, just to name a few of the things that ELSA can do currently. ELSA has been, of course, in its infancy at this point, but FDA's leadership has ambitious designs for ELSA to do data processing and other generative AI functions, again, just to name a few. So this is just kind of a, current developing, evolving dynamic mode that we are in, where industry is working on developing AI platforms, whether they be it for drug development or a submission of applications or interfacing, investors to pharmaceutical companies on a wide variety of fronts. Different platforms are being put together, and FDA themselves have a platform, and they will be continually evolving too. So as industry is doing all this, I want to take a little bit step backwards to explain the regulatory process for expectations, rather, for submission of an IND. This is important to understand as new programs are developed and algorithms need to be adapted for that. So FDA's role in drug development begins at the time of IND submission. And at that point, when a sponsor, which could be a manufacturer, which could be a marketeer, they submit pharmacological data and toxicity data that has potential for either therapeutic or diagnostic application in human use. So very simplistically put, there are three types of INDs that are submitted to the FDA: research INDs, emergency use INDs, and treatment INDs, of course. Interestingly, all of these INDs can use either an approved or commercially available product or an unapproved product. So there are a lot of nuances. And I think what I'm trying to say is it's important to kind of keep this regulatory landscape in the background as algorithms are developed for the AI platforms for seamless transformation and efficiency for the drug approval process.
Great, thank you. Of course, Dr. Gill-Sangha, you as an expert, but also a veteran of understanding this. And I think what we hear is AI is here to stay from a regulatory standpoint. It's really good to learn of various parts of the submission of IND, but also the fact that this is not going away. And with that, let me ask Greg, of course, Greg, from your vantage point as a former global vice chair of Ernst & Young, what trends are you seeing in how companies are approaching AI adoption in the private sector?
Yeah, great question, Dr. Gupta. I think most of us, in our experience of companies today, see AI use being primarily in automation, automating processes, or some people call them co-pilots, AI using AI to help us leverage what we do more effectively. And these are all interesting and valuable use cases, and there's nothing wrong with them. But What we're seeing underneath the covers is the use of AI in fundamentally changing capital efficiency, particularly when you look at that efficiency across a complex value chain. And of course, there's no more complex and arguably important value chain than the drug discovery and development value chain. And it's here that we think the use of AI is going to fundamentally change the capital efficiency and therefore the velocity with which drug discovery can happen, as well as the efficiency of the capital used for that drug discovery. As most people are aware, only 1 out of 10 things that we think are going to get approved actually do get approved. That means 1 in every $10 of capital we allocate actually results in benefit to shareholders as well as the general population who are able to use that drug for the benefit of their health journey. So imagine a world, Dr. Gupta, where AI can fundamentally change the drug discovery value chain from what is essentially a closed loop venture capital or power law business, where 1 in $10 returns results to us all, to basically a business that is working capital, where 9 out of $10 returns value. We dramatically increase the velocity of drugs and therapies available to all of us. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And we're able to use sources of capital now that wouldn't go anywhere near drug discovery before the advent of AI. That, I think, is really exciting, and looking forward to talking more about that, Dr. Gupta.
Wonderful, Greg. I think this is really important. And we've been listening for folks who are on today about, first we heard, that it's here to stay, AI. Now we just heard it's a big deal. So, when we talk about, as you mentioned, the capital value chain, we talk about fundamentally changing the capital efficiency model. It is a big deal. So thank you for sharing that information. And we're going to have some questions later on for the panel as well. So stay tuned. Let me move now next to really talking about the AI and diligence in action. So let me ask Ty, GATC Health just formally announced the Derisk, D-E-R-I-S-Q. Can you explain more about how investors can use this proprietary AI to de-risk their assets and portfolios?
Happy to, Dr. Gupta. Thank you. Yeah, it's a very exciting time. It was just early last week that we announced this Derisk product, which we've gotten a tremendous amount of excitement over because of what the panelists have already been talking about, which is you have this massive industry with this incredibly high failure rate, and it takes many, many years even to get to the failure rate. And unfortunately, we have 40, 50 new drugs being approved by the FDA every year, and thousands of diseases that are untreated. So there's a economic problem, but there's also a societal need for us to understand much more accurately, much sooner, how is the drug going to perform in humans before you're actually even designing a clinical trial. So the impact of this in the financial community, as the panelists were saying, is that it's not only about the scientific decision making, but it's about the investment decision making. So as an investor, whether it be an outside investor in a biotech company, whether it be a CEO or a board or CFO making capital expenditure decisions, what if they had a crystal ball where they could see in the future and understand, predict with a high level of accuracy and detail how their drug was going to perform against the biological targets before entering the clinical trial? So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just give you a high level about this new AI report. As Dr. Gupta said, it's called Derisk with a Q. And what it's doing is allowing today, it's already happening, biotech executives and even investment and insurance companies the ability to make these informed decisions with much greater confidence long before committing to clinical trials. So the Derisk AI report, it uses GATC Health's technology, which simulates human systems biology, and it can process, just to give you an idea of its capabilities, it can process 4 trillion data points in less than 8 minutes. So the platform we did a number of internal retrospective studies based on FDA clinical trials. And we were able to predict about 80% of the time the binding effects of those novel drugs and the outcomes of those retrospectively. So then we engaged the University of California, Irvine to validate, in essence, run a challenge, a blinded challenge. And they were able to validate that we were about 11 times better than the industry average. So we were able, or are able, to predict negative and positive activation on biological targets with about 90% accuracy. And as far as further validation, GATC's AI platform, it's also been selected by Lloyd's of London, as you know, one of the largest respected insurance brands in the world, to be the exclusive AI platform to evaluate clinical trial outcomes for their first ever clinical trial insurance program. So they have, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line based on us being able to successfully provide predictions around those clinical trial outcomes before investing in those clinical trials. So de-risk, it does exactly what it says. It de-risks this decision-making process anywhere in the development timeline. So of course it can help this kind of fast fail processing during preclinical efforts. But for the folks that are probably on this call, it's all about how do I get my drugs in phase 1 into phase 2 into phase 2B, and so forth. So it's very successful and a great tool in progressing drugs through the clinical trial process, very accurately predicting safety, efficacy, and these potential non-obvious off-target effects, which could cause, as you can imagine, patient dropout. So what we like to say is, think of it this way. It's like the FICO score has standardized credit risk as a standard worldwide. De-risk is creating that first objective, accurate readout for drug development predictions. So the report, it's been tested. It's in use today. It doesn't require these very typical, very long contracts, multi-year contracts to figure out how a biotech company would integrate AI into their processes or business model. This is a very specific contract. It's a short form contract. The deliverable is within about 3 to 4 weeks from the time we receive the data and curate the data. There's this very comprehensive 30, 40 page report that the biotech executives and scientists receive that gives that detailed analysis of your drug candidate against your specific endpoints. So it's designed to answer those specific questions that you have about your drug in a clinical trial, but also uncovering those non-obvious data points that maybe it hasn't uncovered in the traditional science methods. So it includes, it's an actionable report. So it includes things like accurate prediction of clinical endpoints based on your design, this quantitative safety and efficacy predictions, off-target risk analysis, as I had said, for patient selection strategies. And it provides a summary executive view and also a deep dive for your science teams. So it is a very actionable report. What has it been used for already? It's been used for smarter trial design. So these kind of AI-driven analysis to design more efficient, more targeted trials, reducing investor risk, which is important for this call, not only for investors, but follow-on investors, and then board transparency. Capital efficiency today is huge. We're hearing it all the time. How do I make sure the dollars I'm spending are going to provide some outcome for, obviously, my clinical trial, but for my shareholders? So understand those issues earlier. And of course, strategic planning. A number of companies are using it to prioritize their pipeline. How do I know that I'm focusing my efforts on the drug most likely to succeed? So as an example, one of our clients, a clinical stage oncology company, was preparing their therapy for a phase 2B development plan, and they needed objective validation to prioritize their cancer indications and also, frankly, to support their fundraising. So we delivered the de-risk report, delivered to them an in-depth safety, efficacy, off-target predictions for 2 different forms of cancer, which allowed them to rapidly select the potential indications and optimize those clinical trial protocols. So as an example, we also uncovered there was a critical off-target issue that caused rashes in about 20% of the patients in the clinical trial, which, as you can imagine, caused a large, significant patient dropout. We uncovered with the de-risk report the cause of that rash, and found that we could just recommend a simple antihistamine co-therapy, and that of course increased the patient adherence. So as I said, it can be used for many different things, and it's think of it as almost like a crystal ball with a lot of detail to uncover those hidden risks and the new opportunities that could arise. I do want to provide a quote, and I'm going to read this. This is from Dr. David Mazzo, the president and CEO of Lisata Therapeutics. Quote, "Derisk is a powerful new tool to help us reduce uncertainty and improve efficiency of research, development, and strategic decisions. Derisk provides an assessment based on simulation of human biology of how drug candidates should be expected to perform in clinical trials." I'll also add that Lisata, when they right after they announced a larger collaborative agreement with GATC Health, they had 2 buy ratings, very substantial buy ratings, coinciding with those announcements. So we'd like to say that this effort to incorporate AI has many benefits for biotech companies. So with that, appreciate your time and look forward to the questions.
Great, thanks for that very nice detail on Derisk product, Ty, appreciate it. You know, for those, we've been talking today, before we turn to the next panelist, before we talk, today we've been talking about the importance of artificial intelligence to regulatory agencies like FDA, and it is going to be the wave of the future. We're talking about why it's such a big deal to have the use of AI into a lot of the capital efficiency way to move forward for your companies. And then we just learned about the product, which is the most sophisticated and advanced tool, I would say, in the world today, to be able to see where a molecule can go in terms of safety, efficacy, and off-target effects, to predict the success/failure, because only 1 out of 10 roughly products make it today, and that's just not acceptable for the American people. So now we get to a point where it's pretty much, for me at least, the most exciting part with our next panelist, because we're going to have a live demo today about this search valuation due diligence. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sambat. The Bioneex platform, and Dr. Sambat has integrated Derisk's AI capabilities. So would you share with us a little bit more about how the Bioneex platform works, and how this approach that you're leading helps to conduct that due diligence as well as accelerate the search-based evaluations?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gupta, and thank you everyone for your insights. So I want to say that, Ty, you spoke about due diligence, applying the AI where the risks come in play. So in our industry, everyone talks about applying AI in drug discovery and finding a novel target or novel drugs. But there is a huge use case, in particularly the due diligence process, where there is already so many existing potential drugs in development that you need to actually, before, whether you are a drug development company or a strategic partner or investor, decide whether you allocate your dollar in this program or other program. And that's where actually a great use case comes the AI with a GATC Derisk program. So what we do at Bioneex, I will share my screen and briefly show you also our platform. So on a high level, so Bioneex is a platform which is for AI-powered platform for the search, evaluation, and due diligence of therapeutic assets. Our platform leverages its proprietary marketplace data, industry-specific data, public data, and clients' internal data. And the platform uses as an underlying personalized LLMs for reasoning and pattern recognition tool. So the data set that our platform uses, it comes from its proprietary marketplace, coming over 2,000 biotechs, drug development companies, with our internal intelligence data. Then we use global industry-specific data, such as patent information, scientific publications, clinical trials, regulatory filings, etc. Then for the client's internal data, we bring on our platform, and it's only accessible and used for the client. So here I want to show you, this is our AI agent, where I simply ask the question, I'm looking for targeted oncolytic peptide. And then the AI shows what it's going to do. It's going to first search in the company documents and then finalize the response. And it also gives the where it's going to focus. So after conducting this search, the AI found out this company and asset, A28 Therapeutics, with the asset of AT101 on our platform, where you can see the risk certified and verified with GATC technology. And then if you want to review that asset, you simply can click the link, come to that asset profile, in this case, AT101. And then you can see the risk analysis here on our platform. And if you want to go and also access the corporate deck of this company, you simply click there and access to the deck. And finally, if you want to get in touch with the company, you simply click get in touch and get directly to the company and message them. So here, this is a great example how the AI can really help you not only to identify novel targets or novel drugs, but also do comprehensive search, evaluation, due diligence, and do the risking of your capital allocation with GATC technology. And I'm proud to say the Bioneex is the only platform in the world that offers such a de-risked asset. And whether you are investor or biopharma company and looking to make a smart decisions in your capital allocation, we welcome to join Bioneex to look into the assets, and everyone that want to review also the risk verified assets. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sambat, and we will provide those contacts and links at the end. But this is very important and great information. So this is also very exciting. Now we get to an interesting part for the next 10 minutes or so. What I want to do is really ask questions here, do a more informal Q&A. So let me directly get to questions for you all, and please feel free to answer it as you feel fit. So, these are things that I think about often. Firstly, let me ask, how can AI increase confidence in the due diligence for investments and regulatory readiness? Again, this is anybody who wants to answer it.
I guess, Dr. Gupta, I can go in for the regulatory readiness perspective. I think from my perspective, I guess submissions as they are filed by the industry powered by AI, coupled with FDA's own AI systems evaluation, definitely have a very, very strong potential for increasing efficiency. I don't think there's any doubt about that, right? So I think we can look further out as well, that as submissions may be facilitated by the AI as well. And it is important to kind of remember that AI may provide a lot more data for human interpretation, which is still there at FDA. But there could be a possibility that some of the decision-making processes are handled through the AI on the FDA side as well. So there is that readiness that is already starting to happen to some extent. I think in the near future, of course, there will be a human in the loop for interpretation, for the final drug approval, definitely for the more complex and, those kind of applications. But there is a potential that some of the easier applications could be handled by the AI. So I think we're kind of getting into that arena.
Perfect.
Very Dr. Gupta, I could maybe add a perspective on some of the comments we've received from some of the investment firms we've talked to. So if you probably looked, over the last 60, maybe 90 days, there's been a little bit of an uptick, maybe a resurgence in public biotech interest from shareholders, from investors. We've talked to a number of investment banks and PE firms and VCs that have been investing and continue to invest in biotech companies. And it seems like they're all using LLMs. They're using ChatGPT, and they're having some success with it. But what that's doing is they're realizing that it's good to a point. At the end of the day, it's not a bespoke model that's really looking at looking at what will happen biologically with these novel drugs going in and affecting these particular targets in therapeutic areas. So what we're finding is the LLM is giving a level of interest to say, it's giving us an edge. What other edge can we get? So being able to understand how a drug is going to perform has a couple of benefits. One, of course, it gives the investment community more confidence and less risk earlier, so they can put money into the model, into the ecosystem, which allows more drug development. Secondly, you may be aware about a third of the about 600 publicly traded companies, about a third are trading at negative enterprise value. So less than cash than they have in the bank, their capital structure, they're trading under cash and debt. So that has been growing. So the CEOs that we're talking to, especially the ones in that 1/3 bucket, they're saying, I need something now to make sure that every dollar I spend and every day of burn is going towards the right project. So I think you're going to see the investment community become more aggressive because there's less risk, more confidence, and I think you're going to see the biotech community being more efficient as far as capital expenditure, and hopefully that'll lead to more medicines in the pipeline.
Yeah, I'll jump in here too. I would just say it very simply. It's the difference between 70-50-30 and 90-90-90. Right? We all know that in general, 70% of molecules get through one, of those 50% get through two, and of those 30% get through three. That's your 1 in 10. That's your power law. And now, if you're a funding decision maker, if you're doing diligence and you're not using Derisk, I'm not sure what you're doing, because you've now changed that to 90-90-90. It is very simple and very straightforward. And the other thing I would say is, if you're now looking to do things like debt financing or other types of financing that have historically been largely unavailable to this particular value chain, you have a basket of 10 molecules. Statistically, 9 out of 10 of them are going to yield. You can price that, you know the TAM of each molecule, and you can do things on both debt and equity financing that you could never do before. This is a game-changing thing, Dr. Gupta.
Game-changing it is. Well said. Thank you all. An important part. So let me turn it over also to ask from a Bioneex perspective. When you apply generative AI in specific industry domains, in 95% cases it fails. So why is that? Maybe Dr. Sambed.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gupta. As Ty also mentioned, a lot of people in the industry using ChatGPT, the most famous one, but they're facing not real meaningful outcomes most of the cases. And from our perspectives, I can tell you, we right now talking one of the largest that everyone knows, big pharmaceutical company in the world, and they were one of the first that started to use the general LLM. So and then they see it actually doesn't give the right outcome. So it's kind of hallucinating, and they decided to take a step back and do not use at the moment. The reason why it's 95% fails in when you apply these general LLMs in such a very specific domain where we are in a drug due diligence space, because there is so much side data in this large LLM. I'll give you there is a data about music, there is a data about soccer and everything. And what LLM trying to do, it's trying to bring from other spaces the data and then just creating something out of that, which then of course the outcome is not really what experts want to see. And that's why it's very, very important to have so-called nowadays highly personalized LLMs, so-called super personalized LLMs. And even quite recently, NVIDIA published also scientific paper about that. And everyone knows that NVIDIA is the core of the ChatGPT and other major AIs. And they said actually the core here to succeed is applying these LLM, but it should be really fine-tuned, so-called, or trained on the really that specific domain area data, and not bring so much side data.
That's a great point, because from an LLM side of this, we got to understand we are also getting sort of super specific and super specialized, and those broad general LLMs may not give you answers. It may be good to look up some broad stuff for us, but when you're into a business, it may not be the end all results and answers for the biopharma companies. So thanks for sharing that. Let me ask everybody, what do you think is the defining factors that attract regulators and investors to the AI-enabled platforms? What are those, you all think?
I'll take my perspective on that. To start with, I mean, it's not just the regulators. Number one is speed to market, I think, from my perspective, not just for industry or investors or FDA, but definitely also to the American consumers, right? So, and it helps the FDA's mission to get products out fast. So speed to market definitely comes to me as something very strong. Reduction of burden, definitely, it again sounds like a close second, not just from an industry point of view, like I think all of the panelists here have alluded to as well. So you have fewer resources because you have more accuracy, you have more validation of your information. Again, not just from the industry perspective, but also from the FDA perspective with the use of AI on the FDA side as well. I think some of the things that Ty alluded to, ring a strong bell that there is going to be an increased number of submissions in a shorter amount of time for indications that have not progressed because of lack of resources, or call it whatever the reasons may be. So those are going to progress as well. So those are some of the three key highlights that I can think of from my perspective.
I would say that from my perspective, a lot of people think capital flows away from risk. That's actually the opposite. Capital flows towards risk, because that's the highest return, is when you have risk capital that works. What capital flows away from is opacity. And the thing that, I can't think of a more opaque value chain right now in the world than the drug discovery and development value chain. So to me, the key point here is this creates transparency in a way that is historically significant, and thus unlocks the ability of capital to flow to this risk, because they can price the risk now, and that is massive for all of us.
Maybe to add to that too, Greg, is and I think it's your former company, Ernst & Young, that had a report that said, I think from now until 2028, there's about 150 to 180 billion dollars of drugs that are in the market that are coming off of patent, and then you combine that with, I think it was of the drugs that are being commercialized today, 65% of those are not meeting commercial expectations. So you've got a lot of pressure from the top down in terms of economic pressures from these companies. And there's nothing like economic pressure to get people off the dime, so to speak. So one of the things we've noticed is that there's been a I don't say so much from the AI companies, but from the industry saying, I love that AI can help discover new drugs faster. That's great. But how can you help me get my drugs into the clinic and through the clinic with greater accuracy, prediction, and greater outcomes? And that's where you're going to see Derisk providing great value, because it's all about how do we get drugs maybe that are off patent, get them repurposed. How can we find new therapeutic areas? How can we do new combination drugs and discover those very quickly in silico, and then get those into the clinic rapidly, and let's treat more diseases based on the technology that's already in the marketplace. And that's what Derisk does.
Great. Well, we're getting close to the close innings here. So let me ask one last question for everybody. How can partnerships drive speed and trust in this evolving landscape that you've all talked about? And specifically with this Derisk report, Ty, what was the process for biotech company to create that report? So just want to open this up to everybody.
I can give a real quick answer to that. Yeah, it's the beauty of this report. We designed it in such a way that it is a product. You're not signing a long-term boil the ocean kind of a company with the AI company. This is I think it's a 5-page agreement, obviously with a statement of work attached. So the process would be, let's have an initial call. If this is something of interest and there's a match, then under an NDA, we would provide a de-identified full de-risk report that your science team could look at. Then we take a look at the next step would be taking a look at the question that needs to be answered or the risk that needs to be uncovered. In essence, what's the problem? What's the action that needs to be delivered in the report? We would design that. It's a collaborative approach. Once the data is securely transferred and it's curated, the report is run. As I said, about 3 to 4 weeks, depending. That report is owned by the client. And at that point, our relationship is contractually over. I will say this, is that I think right now, at least over half of the clients that have worked with us on a de-risk report have either come back for a second report on a different drug, or they've said, hey, how can you guys help us co-discover drugs that can get into the clinic?
Dr. Gupta, I would add another dimension here, which I think is really impactful. So we have a number of foundations that have been established over the decades to attack particular categories of disease or condition, which frankly have eluded us. And we now have the ability with de-risk and working across the research community to find the molecules that really once and for all will help these foundations achieve their mission and improve the lives and the longevity of all of the people affected by those conditions. And I think that's a hugely impactful partnership from my perspective.
Absolutely. When we especially talk about common disease, but also rare and ultra rare diseases, Greg, I think you're exactly right on. So turning over to other panelists as well.
I can just chime in, I guess, from a regulatory perspective, as more and more companies are developing different kind of AI platforms. Yours developing more on the drug development side. There are companies working on the submission of applications using AI platforms to FDA. And there are companies who are trying to, of course, connect the industry to investors. And, there's a whole gamut of industries that are doing. So there is going to be a lot of partnerships collaborating as FDA's AI platform, ELSA, also gets more mature, not an infant anymore. But I think it would be important over time to have a dialogue, maybe a public dialogue between the companies creating the AI platforms with FDA and academia, or folks who are on this, innovation, to make sure that what one company considers is validated is acceptable, I guess, globally, not just with FDA, is acceptable globally. So just my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
So I would like also to add here regarding the AI application general in our industry, it gives a tremendous competitive edge to smaller companies nowadays, which they didn't have till now. And if you think about a little bit parallel the tech industry, there is a lot of tech companies, like very small tech team, but they're doing a tremendous job, really performing highly efficient. The same way in our industry, comparably smaller company can do far efficient and transparent and pretty much the same level as big pharma. Their allocation of their capital through the derisking with an AI, and they can do quick identifying the right asset and then identifying the right partner for that. All these processes where you can apply from search, evaluation to due diligence and derisking your asset and capital allocation, it gives AI truly a huge competitive edge. Every company nowadays, and the question is whether you're using today or not, and if you don't use, then probably tomorrow you will not be in the market.
Wonderful. With that, I will say, look, our panelists last 45 minutes of this discussion have been just amazing and insightful and informative. So, as we wrap up today, let's revisit the key takeaways that we've got from our conversation. The AI's influence in biotech is not just a passing trend. It's driving smarter due diligence. It's causing more accurate risk assessments and stronger investment outcomes across the board. And as our panelists have talked about, and they've highlighted how AI-powered tools are supporting decision-making in the regulatory review, investment analysis, and drug discovery. It's no longer a choice. It's something that's going to happen. And as we mentioned that this work is not infancy anymore. So we hope that these insights will help everyone on the call here navigate the evolving biotech investment landscape with more confidence and more vision. So I want to thank our panelists. First of all, our special thanks to our distinguished panelists for sharing their expertise. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope that this was helpful. We really do encourage you to keep exploring how predictive AI can help de-risk your biotech investments and create new opportunities for growth. Now, if you're interested in this, we promise that we'll get you the contact information. And even learning more about this, please visit Bioneex.com, that is Bioneex.com, as well as Derisk.ai, which is Derisk.ai. And you'll find plenty of information there to contact us, connect with us, and we'll be happy to talk more through and discuss more. So thank you to everyone for joining, including our panelists. And with that comes to the conclusion of this particular webinar. Thank you. Have a good weekend.